Good morning, I'm Robert Tan, sitting in for Mikey Oreta, and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. Economy Secretary Arsenio Balisacan backs calls to tax online gambling. A Philippine delegation is bound for Washington to renegotiate the 20% tariffs imposed by U.S. President Trump. A federal judge bars President Trump from enforcing his sweeping order on birthright citizenship. And the original Birkin bag made by the House of Hermès for artist Jane Birkin sells for more than $10 million at Sotheby's. The country's top economist backs a proposal to tax online gambling. Department of Economy, Planning and Development Secretary Arsenio Balisacan said the matter is being discussed by the country's economic managers, but he clarifies they have yet to study a total ban on online gambling. Last week, Finance Chief Ralph Recto said the government is proposing an online gaming tax, as well as possible limits to gambling platforms' access. President Bongbong Marcos is also backing proposals to tax and to regulate the industry to mitigate addiction-related harm. And Party List Group earlier filed a bill pushing for a 10% tax on online gambling. Proceeds will be allocated to addiction treatment, recovery, and public education. Let's hear his reaction on this matter. We have Manny Ocampo, Senior Managing Director of the Investment and Capital Corporation of the Philippines. Good morning, Manny. Welcome to Business 360.
Hey, Robert. Morning.
Manny, let's get started. The debate on whether to ban or regulate online gambling continues, but what's your take on this?
Well, I think regulation is definitely necessary. We tried a bit on taking a look at the online gaming platforms, how to play it, how to sign up, and all. But it seems that regulation should be there to ensure that minors are the ones that are not playing. We also think that there should be safety nets, or what we call pause buttons, so that players just don't keep doubling up on each bet, and at the end of the day maybe losing tons of money. We know that most of the online gaming sites probably have beefed up their security protocols and all, but again, safety nets or security against breaches, internet scams, and the like, identity breach.
Yeah. Are you in favor of a total ban on online gaming?
Well, okay, let me put it this way, Robert. Now, if we ban, people will just go somewhere else to play. Gray market, or what will be the equivalent of offshore gaming operators with Filipino players playing somewhere else or some other. So we might as well. I think if we do it correctly, we should be all right in providing online gaming as a way of entertainment or as a way of gaming. But it has to be regulated. I think maybe the initial part was that it made it too easy to get on the online gaming platforms. So that's something we'll have to restudy.
That being said, Manny, PAGCOR did warn the Philippine government that they could lose billions in revenues if there will be a ban. But can we do without it?
Well, the answer there is always yes. But, my understanding, again, is that the online gaming platform, for PAGCOR at least, is fairly substantial. And, PAGCOR and the other counterpart agency, the Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office, are really two agencies under the Office of the President that actually contribute fairly substantial revenues, no? And these are consistent. So you take that out, that'll be, you have to find the money somewhere else. So again, something to consider.
How about the supposed job losses in the online gambling sector? Is this worth the sacrifice?
Well, first of all, the people that lose their jobs are probably people in the IT, on the IT side. You won't have to, in terms of number of people, you won't have too many there because these are not brick and mortar casinos where, you will have a lot of people down in the gaming tables or the gaming floor. No, this is, it's all virtual. So, and there's very little there's very little personnel involved relative to a brick and mortar casino, for example.
Looking at PAGCOR's revenue earnings, do you think they are being properly turned over to the government, and does it give the right amount?
Well, PAGCOR and even let's include PCSO. No, they are under their respective charters. They are required to allocate certain amounts of their net winnings for certain programs. So that is there. The Commission on Audit regularly audits these agencies. So tracking is there. I believe there are checks and balances in place. Do they have the, do they give the proper amounts? I would tend to believe so. The checks that they write for dividends and all that are fairly substantial, and that comes in on a regular basis, Robert.
Manny, there are two sides to this discussion. Some want to ban it. PAGCOR wants to regulate it. Do you think there's a middle ground in this issue?
Regulation, I think, will make it will not make it as easy. The way things are right now, maybe it's too easy. For example, the most other international online gaming platforms require you to have a credit card and all that. The ones that are being played now in the Philippines are an in and out on GCash, and it just makes it too easy. So maybe that's the thing we need to take a look at. And everybody has a GCash account. Not everybody may have a credit card account.
But Manny, what's the middle ground? Do you see a middle ground here?
Yeah, regulation, Robert, and maybe a change in format of the games.
Okay, Manny, moving on to the Trump tariffs. There are different reactions now on Trump's tariffs in the Philippines. Some say it's negligible, but others say it will have an adverse effect on the economy. What's your take on this?
Well, this is really trade between the Philippines and the U.S. And mind you, the Philippines actually enjoys a trade surplus vis-a-vis the United States. I think we've regularly been on a trade surplus with the U.S. So this is, I guess, the United States wanting to equalize terms. Maybe you guys should. It's a message saying maybe the Philippines should be looking at buying more from the United States. I don't know, something to that effect.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, if I could, the good thing there is that our key exports to the U.S., which are electronics and semiconductors, are actually on the exempt list. So they are exempt from tariffs. So that's good. Now, agri-products, furnitures and wood crafts and food and others are the ones subject to now the higher taxes. That may hurt the smaller guys here that are producing agri-products and exporting to the U.S. We'd also like to assess, are other countries that export the same things to the U.S. subject to the same or higher tariff rates? If they're subject to higher tariff rates, that puts us maybe on a better footing. But for example, if if other countries are exporting at a 15 or 10% tariff relative to our 20%, then that will hurt our exporters to the U.S.
Now, Manny, a Philippine delegation is flying to the U.S. to renegotiate. Do you think Trump will lower the tariff? As you mentioned, our ASEAN neighbors their tariffs are a bit higher than what's going to be hopefully imposed in the Philippines.
Yes. Well, I think there should be room. You know, I took a look at the letter of President Trump. It's pretty much a cut and paste thing for all the countries that they wrote to. So you know, there should be room. I think what he's really doing is, come to the negotiating table. Let's talk. He's probably looking at commitments from the Philippines on, what can you guys look at buying? That should change, especially with the approved defense spending things from the Philippine government is doing. So we will actually be importing or purchasing higher value or arms and all that from the United States, and that should equalize or maybe in fact swing the trade balance in the U.S. favor.
That being said, Manny, what should now be the strategy of the Philippines to get through this, or at least cushion or minimize the impact here in the Philippines?
Okay, maybe something that our people from the trade ministry and all that should take a look at would be to take a look at opportunities. We enjoy a favorable tariff structure as far as the export of electronics are concerned. We should be looking to invite other countries that may be an unfavorable tariff structure for similar electronics and ask them to take a look at maybe building factories here and exporting from out of the Philippines. Then they enjoy the Philippine tariff structure for electronics. That's maybe something that would help drive building, foreign investments coming into this country, increasing employment and all that. So maybe that's an opportunity we could take a look at.
On that note, Manny, thank you for joining us here this morning on your insights on online gambling and the effects of the U.S. tariffs here in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Meanwhile, let's take a look at how global financial markets performed overnight. Wall Street ended higher on Thursday as investors shrugged off U.S. President Donald Trump's latest tariff salvos. Investors were also encouraged by an upbeat forecast from Delta Airlines after its share rallied following its forecast of third quarter and full-year profits above Wall Street estimates.
Well, I think there seems to be some enthusiasm about NVIDIA, hitting a 4 trillion mark. I can remember when the entire market was $4 trillion. So that is pretty amazing. But I think there's no new information in that, but I think it's the kind of thing that maybe generates some enthusiasm for stocks overall. I think that's part of it. I think also we're just about to start earnings season, or if we haven't already started it. And I think investors are reasonably positive about the outlook for earnings. They're expecting earnings to be up for the quarter.
The Dow rose 0.4%. The S&P 500 gained nearly 0.3%. And the Nasdaq added almost 0.1%. Europe closed mixed. London's FTSE climbed more than 1%. Germany's DAX lost nearly 0.4%. But France's CAC 40 rose 0.3%. The U.S. is moving forward with a staggering 20% tariff on Philippine exports, and the government is trying to put a positive spin on it, but with sectoral exemptions in play and industry leaders sounding the alarm. How will this impact the country's global competitiveness? Sujin Kim reports.
The palace has expressed concern, but it appears focused on the positive side of the 20% tariffs the U.S. has imposed on the country, set to take effect next month.
We are concerned that the U.S. has decided to impose a 20% tariff on Philippine exports. The fact remains, however, that the 20% rate is the second lowest among all reciprocal tariffs that the U.S. has imposed on the region, the lowest being the 10% of Singapore.
The economic team clarifies that the country's main export, semiconductors, is exempt from the tariff.
America has sector-specific tariffs and sector-specific exemptions. So it has nothing to do with us. So the semiconductors that I'm talking about that are exempted is not because of us. It's because America chose to exempt certain semiconductor sectors because they deemed it important to their, for example, supply chain, or deemed it important to their national security. So they exempted certain semiconductor categories. And fortunately, swerte tayo that a lot of those that they exempted are actually our semiconductor exports to the United States. So the rest of the products are subject to the tariff.
Despite this, it's clear that many other products will be hit by the additional tax, including agricultural exports, industrial goods, and consumer products not on the exemption list. A Philippine delegation is set to fly to Washington next week for face-to-face negotiations.
So myself, together with DTI Secretary Chris Roque and Undersecretary Perry Rodolfo and Undersecretary Alan Hepty, will be flying to the United States next week. This is actually a scheduled trip to the United States even before today's announcement, no?
However, experts and trade advocates do not share the government's calm outlook. Filomena Santa Ana, executive director of the advocacy group Economic Action Reform, slammed the tariffs as arbitrary and an assault on the rules-based global trading system. He warned that the adverse effect on the Philippines' electrical and electronic exports will be immediate. Another coalition, Trade Justice Pilipinas, called the 20% tariff a blatant weaponization of trade policy, an act of economic strong-arming. Even the country's largest business group, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, was stunned by Trump's announcement.
So this news is really, we are taken aback and we are totally unprepared for this. If you remember, 2 months ago, an economic team led by no less than Secretary Go and Secretary Roque went to Washington, D.C. to negotiate for more favorable terms on this tariff. They came home bearing good news.
Trade VP Brian Ang said the decision came at a time when local exporters were already struggling to compete.
From the beginning, our local exporters have never had good business, especially exporting to the U.S. Gone are the days when our furniture from Cebu and the garments were all made in the Philippines. Today, all U.S. garment and furniture, if you can see, made in Honduras, made in Peru, made in even Bangladesh. So our competitiveness is at its lowest. So this kind of news will definitely not help and just aggravate the issue.
He warned it puts the country at a clear disadvantage against neighboring economies.
Even today, we will immediately feel it because we are already not competitive. There is really no hope for our local exporters to sell to the United States with this add-on tariff. You have to look at the other countries. We were increased from 17 to 20% tariff, but there are other countries who received a reduction in tariff. Moldova, Sri Lanka, even Iraq received a 9% reduction. So it just shows we are not a favored partner.
For Ang, the issue goes beyond tariff numbers. He argues that structural gaps like the lack of local subsidies and policy support make the Philippines a less attractive destination for global manufacturers.
You compete with Vietnam, Cambodia, diba?
Yes,
From
sir.
17 to 20. When Vietnam has been giving all their local manufacturers subsidy on fuel, electricity, income tax holiday. Philippines has not done that. We cannot afford to give all the subsidy. So to begin with, we are already so many steps behind. This tariff is just one component, and it doesn't help that from 17 we were increased to 20. The hope kasi is for all these manufacturers in China to relocate to us. But with this tariff, why would they? They would rather go to Vietnam, Cambodia, etc., even Sri Lanka.
And given the uncertainty surrounding the U.S. market, Ang urges a refocus towards other regions.
I would look at other countries, diba? what if you sell to China? Diba? Yes, politically, we are not the best of friends, but commercially, there is so much opportunity there. So we can explore that.
Finally, on Trump's vote to have Philippine manufacturers relocate to the U.S., Ang says,
In the first place, how many manufacturers do you have? Diba? Manufacturing is not a growing sector in the Philippines. Number two, U.S. is not cheap labor in the U.S. It's even harder to train American than to train our local workforce. If you relocate just for U.S. market, you have to do your analysis. Is it worthwhile? You will be so much further naman from Asia. The logistic cost of relocating is also there.
He pointed out that the upcoming ASEAN summits to be hosted by the Philippines next year could be timely venues to reopen trade talks and push for more balanced terms. Soojin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Philippines will not retaliate against the United States after President Donald Trump imposed a 20% tariff on Philippine exports. Finance Secretary Ralph Rectus says the country will avoid countermeasures, warning they could do more harm than good in the long run. Instead, the government will pursue constructive win-win negotiations. The Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, meanwhile expressed concern over the U.S. tariff despite its continued efforts to engage Washington. While acknowledging America's concerns over trade imbalances and its push to boost domestic manufacturing, the DTI stresses that global supply chains are deeply interconnected and that unilateral trade actions could negatively impact the global economy. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Thursday that Asian nations might get better tariff rates than the rest of the world. Rubio is in Malaysia for the ASEAN Foreign Ministers Conference. He also clarifies negotiations with various nations, including Japan, are not yet finished.
This is where 2/3 of economic growth is going to happen over the next 25 or 30 years. And many of the countries in Southeast Asia, not only are they some of the youngest countries in the world, but they're about to see an enormous expansion of their labor markets, their labor pool, number of workers. This is a historic, once-in-a-generation opportunity, not just for these countries to revolutionize themselves from an economic standpoint, but further strengthen our relationship.
The World Bank Group is offering the Philippines more affordable hybrid loans. Arsenio Balisacan, chief of the Department of Economy, Planning and Development, or DepDev, says these are new financing products that blend elements of both project and policy-based loans. He notes that several other countries are already using these hybrid loans to support their development and policy initiatives. But before the Philippines can start using them, Balisacan says the government needs to figure out how to approve these loans. Right now, the Investment Coordination Committee, or ICC, approves project loans, while the Development Budget Coordination Committee handles policy loans. However, hybrid loans don't clearly fall under either category, so the government needs to create a process that fits. Bureau of Customs Commissioner Ariel Nepomuceno issues a landmark memorandum strictly prohibiting all officials and customs personnel from holding any business or financial interest in customs brokerage operations. All customs personnel are required to submit a verified affidavit to the office of the commissioner within 10 days, disclosing any familial relationship with individuals involved in customs brokerage businesses, regardless of their role or status in these entities. This is in response to President Bongbong Marcos's call for good governance. It is also part of the agency's efforts to eliminate conflicts of interest. We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and narratives that matter most to your bottom line. Rental rates in Metro Manila are taking a sharp nosedive, with the Bay Area seeing a staggering 50% drop since the pandemic. But while mid-price units struggle, luxury properties are thriving. So what does this mean for the future of the market? Soojin Kim has the details.
Rental rates continue to plunge in several parts of Metro Manila. as the office and residential property markets grapple with vacancies and shifting demand. The sharpest drop was recorded in the Bay Area or Pasay City, where rental rates have fallen by 50% compared to pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah, so this was the POGO market, about almost 50%. So from 1,700 per square meter per month average then, it has dropped to about 856.
Alabang Muntinlupa followed with a 38% drop, while Ortigas Mandaluyong slid by 24%. In stark contrast, Taguig recorded a 24% increase in average rent per square meter, defying the general decline. On the residential side, over 80,000 condominium units remain unsold, translating to 3 years' worth of oversupply or approximately 37 months of inventory. The bulk of unsold units are in the mid-income segment, priced between 2 to 7 million pesos, with Quezon City alone accounting for nearly 20,000 of these vacant units.
Of the luxury segment market.
Rentals in ultra-luxury subdivisions remain strong. In fact, prices are rising, led by Dasmariñas Village in Makati. Lots in southern subdivisions sell for just 1/3 of the price in Dasmariñas, creating an entry point for investors.
Once we exhaust Manila, which is what's happening, the natural spillover is Alabang.
Property experts are also monitoring the progress of reclamation projects, which will unlock new supply in the years to come.
Makati by 2026 will be out of the oversupply situation. But Alabang still has 3 years worth from today, so by 2027 they're out. But Ortigas and the Bay and Quezon City still have 5 years worth of supply. So that will take some time to absorb. But it's also a good time to produce more land.
Meanwhile, office locators are gradually migrating from central districts like Makati and BGC to the north and south corridors, particularly Quezon City and Alabang.
Makati and Bonifacio provide the highest salaries in the country. Most of these companies are in Makati, Bonifacio. That's changing now. So more and more companies are locating in Quezon City, more and more companies are locating in Alabang. Because now, unlike before, there's a very deep, rich, well-employed labor market in the south and the north. So companies are now looking to take advantage of that.
Despite these headwinds, the BPO industry remains stable, filling vacant spaces and driving demand both inside and outside traditional CBDs. Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Trading at the Philippine Stock Exchange opened earlier. Let's look at the initial figures. The PSEI is in the green, trading at 64.74. Majority of these sub-indices are in the green. Advancers currently outpacing decliners 80 to 55. So far, value turnover has reached 1.8 billion pesos. Meanwhile, in currency markets, the peso opened at 56.55 to the dollar, depreciating from previous close of 56.47. The Philippines is set to open air service talks with Japan, India, Thailand, and possibly the United States in a bid to boost tourism and increase connectivity. The move comes as the country faces growing competition from neighboring Southeast Asian markets. According to Civil Aeronautics Board Executive Director Carmelo Arcilla, these negotiations could happen this year, aiming to lure more visitors. The Philippine Air Services negotiating panel, comprising multiple government agencies and airline representatives, will lead the talks. Latest tourism data shows a mixed performance, with Japan leading growth, while India and Thailand experience small declines. There will be no peak in oil demand before 2050. That's according to the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, adding that global demand for crude will continue to grow at least until that year. In its latest annual outlook, OPEC projects global oil demand will rise by 8.6% from 103.7 million barrels per day in 2024 to 123 million barrels per day by 2050. The increase is driven by economic growth, rising populations, greater urbanization, and the rise of new energy-intensive industries. OPEC also criticized efforts to rapidly phase out fossil fuels, calling them an unworkable fantasy. We're taking a short break. Business 360 will be right back. Department of Migrant Workers Secretary Hans-Leo Cacdac reports 3 more Filipino crew members of bulk carrier MV Eternity Sea have been rescued. This brings the number of rescued seafarers to 8. More than a dozen others are still missing. Cacdac said reports of 3 to 4 possible fatalities are still being verified. He assured the families of the seafarers that they will receive full assistance from the government. The Liberian-flagged vessel was attacked by the Houthi forces off the coast of Yemen on July 7. They said their attacks are in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. Malacanang has officially confirmed the appointment of former journalist and corporate communications expert Dave Gomez as the new Secretary of the Presidential Communications Office. Gomez is the 5th PCO chief of the Marcos administration after Jay Ruiz, Cesar Chavez, Cheloy Garafil, and Trixie Angeles. He has a strong background in journalism as a previous palace reporter. Gomez also once served as the Director General of the Philippine Information Agency.
We are pleased to announce that President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has appointed Mr. Dave Gomez as Secretary of the Presidential Communications Office. Secretary Dave will ensure clear and truthful government messaging for every Filipino.
Meanwhile, Ruiz will now join the board of the Manila Economic and Cultural Office after a 5-month stint in the PCO. Ilocos Norte Representative and presidential son Sandro Marcos could likely play a bigger role in the 20th Congress. He is reportedly being eyed as the House Majority Leader. Several lawmakers have expressed their support for the younger Marcos during a fellowship dinner this week. If Representative Marcos does not get the post, it may reportedly be offered to Quezon Representative David Suarez. Marcos served as Senior Majority Leader during the 19th Congress. We're taking a breather. Business 360 will be right back. A federal judge has once again barred U.S. President Donald Trump from enforcing his sweeping order on birthright citizenship. This comes after the U.S. Supreme Court restricted the ability of judges to block his policies using nationwide injunctions. A New Hampshire judge granted a class action status to a lawsuit seeking to represent any baby whose citizenship status would be threatened by Trump's directive. The judge said he would keep his ruling for a week to allow the administration to appeal. Trump's EO on birthright citizenship has been set to take effect on July 27th. President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva is still looking for a diplomatic solution to President Trump's threat of a 50% tariff on Brazilian exports. But he also vowed to reciprocate if the tariffs will take effect on August 1st. The U.S. is Brazil's second largest trading partner after China. But the tariffs could have an adverse effect on the U.S. as well. The proposed 50% tariff would effectively halt the flow of Brazilian coffee to the U.S., its largest buyer.
Que o Trump cuide dos Estados Unidos para os americanos.
I want Trump to take care of America for Americans. I want Americans to have a better life. I want Americans to live democratically. Just respect the right of Brazilians to live as well. The way you like the American people, I like the Brazilian people. It's my life. It's the people who define things. I'm Brazilian. I like Brazil, and I never give up.
Brazilian protesters burnt a Trump effigy on Thursday. Aside from coffee, Brazil is also a major exporter of orange juice, sugar, beef, and ethanol. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi declared that China is a reliable partner for ASEAN in addressing regional and global challenges. He emphasized 4 key areas of cooperation: upholding international fairness, maintaining regional peace, promoting mutually beneficial economic ties, and fostering cultural exchange. Wang highlighted China's support for ASEAN's central role in regional affairs and its willingness to sign the Southeast Asia Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone Protocol. ASEAN countries expressed gratitude for China's support and committed to deepening collaboration in trade, infrastructure, call for global governance on AI. The Pope says technological advancements should go hand in hand with respect for human and social values. This message from the Pontiff at a summit on artificial intelligence in Switzerland, where industry leaders, policymakers, and experts discuss AI's potential benefits and challenges.
Humanity is at a crossroads, facing the immense potential generated by the digital revolution driven by artificial intelligence. The impact of this revolution is far-reaching, transforming areas such as education, work, art, healthcare, governance, the military, and communication. This epochal transformation requires responsibility and discernment to ensure that AI is developed and utilized for the common good.
The original Birkin bag of luxury brand Hermès was sold for $10 million at Sotheby's Paris. The auction house said this is a record for a fashion item in Europe. The buyer, who made the winning bid via telephone through a representative in the room, was a Japanese collector. A hedge fund manager from New York who came to the auction said the prize was a fair reflection of the symbol that Hermès bags have become for women.
Because I really think that the Birkins and the Kellys speak a different language than we even think they did before. Like, I think that it's always a milestone in a woman's life to get one of these bags. We all know exactly where we were when we bought our first or a third or a fifth or a seventh. And I think it's a real triumph for women, frankly. I really do.
And that's it for Business 360. I'm Robert Tan, sitting in for Mikey Oreta. Thank you for joining us. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.